Okay, this is Brother Watkins, and this is a short video for my online students who are taking 231 without coming to the lectures. I want to give you some heads up ideas for studying pivot tables so that you're on an equal footing for those students that have been hearing this in class. First, whenever you practice from the same data sets that you're going to use in the testing center. Because if you used my introduction, the worksheet that's found at this link, you're already seeing the results of a lot of settings that I've made, such as the grouping of the data or the preparation of calculated fields. So always start from the raw data sets. They look like, I'm going to pull it up right now, this right here. Okay, so here's the data you should be practicing from. Now I'm going to go through in order the functions that you absolutely have to know in order to do well on the test. I've said before, the number one function you need to know is the calculated fields. That last table in your syllabus on the worksheet with the calculated field is going to be 25 points of the exam. It's very important that you know that, and typically I find that the students struggle with the if statement. So I will demonstrate that in a little bit. So let's start first with a value filter. Okay, a value filter is probably the control you use the most. Now, when you prepare your pivot table, remember that you have to be inside the data before you hit insert. You also have to be only one cell. If I have more than one cell and I try to insert a pivot table, it thinks that's all the data. Okay, that's not all the data. So cancel that out. Make sure you have one cell. If I'm over here outside the data, well, it worked that time. Typically it won't work. Okay, so just make sure that you have practiced and you can get inside the data. Alright. Oh, that's why it worked. It didn't go to a pivot table. Good. Okay, so we're inside the data. Insert pivot table. Go. Alright, we want to see categories and products and sales. Now, what you're looking at here is the default view for up-to-date modern pivot tables. Okay, pivot tables now start with this little graphic here. They used to start with something that looked like this. And hopefully you have watched my why doesn't my finished table look the same as the ones in the sample. That's why. So whenever the option is set for classic view, things will look a little bit different, but they'll work the same. So here we go, category, product, and sales. Now you see that it's come up in a different format. Before, it was defaulting to compact form. In compact form, this little button here applies to every record in your pivot table, every field, and you can select them with this button. I find that that's tough for students to remember, so I encourage you to learn how to find report layout and always go to tabular form. That way, if I tell you to sort, say I want the top 2 products, then I go to this button because this button pertains to product. Okay, value filters. I'm only going to test you on top 10, even though these are the most valuable functions you'll get in pivot tables. If you think about it, I mean, most of the time you're searching large data sets, you're looking for something that's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. But let's do the top 10, and let's change that to the top 3 items. Okay, so now we've sorted on product. I can hover over that and it will say value filter in order, product, top 3 by sum of sales. What if I want to see now the top category? Well, then I go to this button because it pertains to category. All right, and so I would do a value filter again, top 10. I only want to see the top 1, so I'm just going to change that over here, the top 1, always by sum of sales. The numbers come from calculated fields. This little sign right here, calculated field. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, here's now the top category showing the top 3 products in the category. Now the last thing you need to know how to do is to sort. Sorting can be found here on that little button. I can do an ascending sort based on sum of sales. That means we're going to start low and we're going to ascend and get big. Or I could just right click in the numbers and I can say sort largest to smallest. Whatever's easy for you to remember, do it that way. Finally, remember that you always have to go to value field settings. It's not showing it here, so I'll pull this down. So when I click on sum of sales, value field settings, now I'll push this back up, and I'm going to go to format, which is in the lower left corner. All your numbers in your test need to be formatted. Okay, my computer is taking its sweet time. There we go. Currency or number. Number's okay if you use the thousand separator. Currency's always okay. And we hit alright, and we're done. Finally, on the test, you're always asked to find and place one of these designs. I need one of these on each single one you do. Okay, so there we go. That's fine. I don't care which one you pick, just that you do it. Finally, when you go down to the bottom here on the tab, and I'll pull this down again so you can see what happens when I click on the tab. I can rename the tab. I can call it Answer 1. I can click and then click back, and then I can change the tab color to, let's say, bright blue. And when I click off, I have Answer 1, it's in blue, and if I want to make it in order, I can click and drag that around to order it so that I can line up answers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so that's value filters and sort, both of which are crucial functions. Now let's do a report filter function. A report filter is kind of a way of shortcutting to data that you really want to see. So if we have our top salesman report, insert, pivot table, salesperson's order amounts. Okay, here's our top salespeople. If I only want to see the salespeople from England, I drag country into the report filter box. And then I set the report filter to the UK. And now it automatically filters, and I'm only seeing the UK. Okay, when I hover on the filter button, it's not showing me anything because I'm not using this filter. I'm using this one. It's kind of like a super filter. It's a report filter for the entire report. I can turn it off, or I can select multiple items. But on the test, when I tell you to limit the display of data to either the salespeople from the US or the UK, I expect you to set the report filter and make sure that it reads one of the countries. I hate to take points off for people that manage to get the filter here, but then when I come to grade it, they've left it unset. So if you're told to set the filter, make sure you do it right. Alright, finally, moving along, we go to the grouping function. And you're aware of grouping because a lot of our pivot tables involve dates. Okay, now here's a pivot table in compact form that's showing every date that this Buchanan fellow made a sale. Well, we don't want to look at every date, so I'm going to go into the dates, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to hit group. Okay, now when group comes up, I'm going to set quarters and years. That's all you're going to set, quarters and years. Now watch over here, as soon as I hit OK, years popped up there. And you always want to have years first, the more general first. If I put years second, I can look at quarters per years. That might be applicable sometime, but not usually. So try to keep it going this way. Alright, I'm going to now change this to tabular because I like it better. Doesn't mean that you have to do it on the test. Whether it's in compact, outline, or tabular form, you get full credit. So now we're looking at 8 quarters. So please remember that. Please remember that if you don't show the years, you're only showing 4 quarters, and that's an error because you're missing half your data. And the way to do that, okay, it automatically switched everything again, is to click in the data. And if you're confused and it's just not working, back up, take a deep breath, group it again, quarters and years. Okay, I don't want to see any trouble on this one. I also want you to remember that this is something that allows me to compare all of Buchanan's sales from 03 to 05. But what if I want to compare salesmen against each other? Well, then I take salesperson, I bring it down, and now I can see quarter 3. Here are all my salespeople and their reports for quarter 3. And if I want to sort them, largest to smallest, there I go, I'm sorted. If I want to turn this in and get full credit, I format the numbers as currency, and then I pick one of the styles. There we go, full credit, after I, of course, name sheet and put a color on that. Now, there is a control that's only available in Excel 2010. If you open the wrong Excel version, just close it and open 2010. Save your data file on your desktop and then reopen it so that you see the green tab. Because this show values as only appears in Excel 2010. It's a new function. So if I want to change and see percentages, okay, let's do that here. I'm going to pull down a new order amount. Remember, you can pull it down as many times as you want. But I'm going to change this one to show it as a percent of the grand total. You won't be asked to do any of these, even though these are great, ranking, all these kind of things. Percent of grand. And that's how to add a column to show you a percent. Okay? So just remember, show values as. Now finally, just a quick lesson here in subtotals. Whatever comes down to this value box is a calculated, it's a value field. And when I click on it, value field settings will show me the way it's calculating. It's either a sum, an average, a max, or min, but it's calculating something. If I go to any of these other fields and I click on them, you can't see this, so I'll pull it down. Click on years. Field settings. It's not a value field, it's just a regular field. And you can use subtotals. Okay, there's no subtotals on years right now. It looks like we have subtotals on the quarters. So if I go here to quarters and I go to field settings, it's automatic. I can say none. I've turned off my subtotals. See how they went away? Let me show you another subtotal control, because subtotals are very important on this test. Let's go to product sales here. So we'll insert pivot table, and this is the pivot table where you have categories, products belonging to categories, and sales. And heck, let's put quarters in the column, so now we see everything here. If I want to see all of my subtotals, I do not create additional columns. Subtotals are found in one place. Right now in this format, subtotals are at the top. If I change my format to tabular, they go to the bottom where you're probably more used to seeing it. Let's get rid of quarters here so that we can see our subtotals. Now I'm going to put a bunch of subtotals in, right? I want to put them in by category. So I go to the category and I click on it and I go to field settings. Okay, there's the name, category, custom. I want a sum, average, max, and min. And there are my subtotals. Know how to do that. I just hate taking all these points off people's tests because they forgot where to find a simple control. Finally, to get all the points, format your numbers. There you go, and then pick one of these and then rename your answer 2, and finally, for all your extra credit, change the tab color to whatever you might be told to change it to. Okay, so now we've gone over value filters, sort functions, report filters, value field operations. Actually, let's do another value field operation. Let's go to order reports. Okay, insert pivot table. All right, and if I say I want to look at my products and I want to look at my prices, what it's showing me is the sum of unit price. Well, let's say I want the top, or actually the bottom 10 prices, my cheapest products in this list of, looks like 80 or so products. What I would do is I would change this sum function by clicking on value field settings. Again, just so you can see, it's at the bottom. I click value field settings, bring it back up. I want the min function because I want to know what the cheapest prices are. So now I'm looking at the cheapest prices for them, and since I only want to see the bottom, I go to the top 10, change top to bottom. Done. There's my bottom. And if I sort them largest to smallest, actually we're looking for the cheapest. So let's sort them from smallest to largest. So this ghee toast is my cheapest stuff. So that highlights for you what it means to change your value field operator. Okay, TOOM is the cheapest price. If I want to see the highest price these things ever sold for, I go to max. If I want to change this to highest price, I'd have to change my bottom 10 to top to find the. So let's sort this. So there's my highest price. So just remember, if I want to know how many times I had a sale of the product, I don't care how much, I just want to know how many times, then I'd use the count. Okay, it looks like we sold a lot of this stuff. So if I turn this top 10 to bottom 10, I can tell you what people don't like. People don't like this Mishi Kobe Niku stuff. So that's the only place to find your value operator is on a value field, which is only found in calculated values. That little sign there, calculated values. Alright, so now you guys are experts on doing that. Calculated fields, let's briefly go over the #1 error that students make. So I'll go to salesperson reports. I think I've already done a salesperson report. Okay, let's put in our dates and let's click on years. Bring years first. Okay, so now what we're going to do, so you can see it easier, I'll put it in tabular. We want to give a bonus to everybody who has greater than 20,000. So I go to my options, fields, items, and sets, calculated field. And I'm going to say bonus. I want to calculate a bonus. Formulas always start with an equal sign. And then the function name, which is if. And then a parenthesis. If has 3 arguments or necessary pieces of the function. The first is a test. I have to test something. I want to test the order amount, so I'm going to double click on order amount and say greater than 20,000. Don't forget that when you want to put the field up in the formula box, you click on it. You don't type it. Typing it will cause trouble. I type a comma. What comes next is what happens if that formula is true. If it's true, I want bonus to equal 0.15. If it's false, I want it to equal 0.1. Then I close it up. That there is your formula, and I would encourage you to just memorize it. If you can't learn how to read it, just memorize it, because this is the #1 problem on this test. So now I have bonus. Okay, I want to format it. So I go to value field settings, and I go to format. And I want to make it a percentage with 0 decimal places, and I want a custom name on this one, bonus percent. I don't want it called sum of bonus. I want a good name that means something. Done. Okay, so now let's do the next calculated field, which is simply the bonus paid, and I'm going to double click on ordered amount, and I'm going to hit times, and I'm going to double click on bonus. That's it. Hit OK. And there's my sum of bonus paid, which I need to then call it bonus paid. Now I get away with using the same because I don't have the underscore here. But if it ever says you can't use your custom name because you already used it, don't fight with it. Just come up with another name, because I'm not grading you on whether you get it exactly the way I do it. I just want to see that you put a name on there. Okay, and then finally I'm going to format my numbers as currency. Done. And then last I'm going to go to I'm going to call this one total sales, and I'm going to format it. Let's use a number this time. Always check that box. Great. Now I want to get rid of my subtotal, so I go into salesperson, field settings, no subtotal. Great. I want to give it a design of some sort, but I want to do banded rows for this one. Oh, that's banded rows. Hard to miss that. Something a little more subtle maybe. There we go. So that is how to do the calculated field. Ooh, one problem. Got to make sure we set our report filter. There you go. Okay, so now you know how to do your calculated fields. You know how to do your subtotals. You know how to do banded rows. You know how to tell which comes first. Is it my salesperson that comes first, or does my salesperson come last? Well, they're both valid. It depends on what your question is asking you to do. All right. The last thing to need to know is the drill down function. How do I turn in if I ask a drill down? Let's go to some completed one that we've done already. Okay, the question says we want to know all the sales for that second most popular product in the beverage category, which would be this chai stuff. All you do is you hover over it and you double click. This is all the data that pertains to that number. This would be the answer. No formatting necessary. You would just name the sheet and you're done. Okay. Let's do another example. What data has anything to do with Grandma's boysenberry spread? There's 12 sales. Well, I want to see them. Okay, look at that. 12 sales right there. So this is called a drill down, and if I ask a question that requires a drill down, you might have to set up something first. I couldn't get there until I had seen this, but the answer to your the answer that you label is just this page. All right, I'm excited to see the highest scores ever on the pivot table exam. I gave you guys extra time. You now know all the secrets that I told my lecture students. Good luck, and email me if you have any questions.